Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Today we're going to be looking at the future of work for those over 50.
Okay.
And we found some really interesting sources while we were doing our research for this one.
Yeah, lots of different perspectives.
Yeah, we have job boards like FlexJobs and Seniors for Hire.
Mm,
We have advice sites like Retired Brains, and then even some nonprofits like AARP and Cogenerate.
it's a really interesting mix.
Yeah, and it's seems like there are a lot of people who are really interested in this topic.
For sure, yeah. I mean, by 2028, a quarter of the U.S. workforce will be 55 or older.
Wow.
That's a significant number.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why we're seeing such a wide range of resources and information available for people who are, in that demographic.
Yeah, and I think it's right that these resources are out there.
So let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
One of the biggest trends that we saw across all of the sources was the rise of remote work.
Yeah.
So FlexJobs, for example, has a ton of remote positions.
Hmm.
And it's not just entry-level jobs or tech jobs. Right.
We're seeing listings for engineers, healthcare professionals, even senior level management positions.
Yeah, I saw a lot of those too. And it seems like companies are finally starting to realize that experience is valuable, whether you're in the office or working from home.
Totally. And what really impressed me about FlexJobs was that they verify all their postings.
Oh, wow.
So they actually go through and make sure that these are legitimate jobs and that they're not scams.
That's a great service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for older adults who might be, more vulnerable to those kinds of things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, another site that we looked at, Seniors for Hire,
Yeah.
they actually address age discrimination head on,
Wow.
which I thought was really interesting.
That's awesome.
They are really advocating for these experienced workers and helping them find the right opportunities.
It's nice to see that kind of dedicated support for a specific group of people.
For sure.
And, it's not just about finding any job. Our source, Retired Brains, highlighted a key point that people are working after retirement for all sorts of reasons. It's not always about needing the money.
Right.
Some people want to stay social. Some people want to keep active. Some people, maybe just need a little extra income.
It really changes that idea of what retirement should look like.
Yeah, it's not just sitting on a beach somewhere.
Exactly.
People are looking for purpose and engagement in this new stage of life.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Retired Brains also points out that part-time and work-from-home options are really popular among retirees.
Yeah, that echoes what we saw in FlexJobs.
For sure. Definitely seems like there's a trend there.
Yeah, and it's not even just about traditional employment.
Okay.
Retired Brains mentions that a surprising number of people over 50 are starting their own businesses these days.
That's really cool.
Yeah, they actually cite data from the Kauffman Foundation that people age 54 to 64 make up almost a quarter of all business owners in the U.S. So it's a pretty significant chunk of the entrepreneurial landscape.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, older adults, they have so much experience and knowledge to draw on.
Absolutely.
And they probably have a really good understanding of how to manage their time and resources.
Yeah, they've learned a thing or two over the years.
For sure.
And Retired Brains even mentions some low-cost franchise opportunities as a way to kind of dip your toes into entrepreneurship.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so if you're not quite ready to go all in on starting your own business from scratch, there are some options out there where you can kind of get a little bit of support and guidance.
That's cool.
Yeah, and if entrepreneurship isn't your thing,
Right.
there are other options too.
Okay.
USA Joe BS, which is the federal government's job board, they list positions in a wide range of fields.
Really?
Yeah, from STEM to social sciences to healthcare.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, me too. I was actually really impressed with the diversity of the listings that they had.
Like what kind of thing?
They had positions for mathematicians, medical officers, all sorts of interesting roles.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it seems like the government is looking for experienced talent across the board.
And a lot of times federal employment comes with good benefits too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Job security, good retirement packages.
Which can be really appealing, especially for people who are, in the later stages of their career.
It's about that whole package deal.
For sure.
So it's not just about the job itself. It's about what comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, while we're talking about purpose and fulfillment,
Okay.
we can't forget about volunteering.
Right.
That's where AARP Foundation Experience Corps comes in.
Okay, I've heard of them.
So they train older adults to tutor children in reading.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just about keeping busy, it's
Mm.
about using your skills to make a real difference in the community.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and they actually cited a statistic
Right.
that 98% of Cooters reported feeling more physically and mentally active because of their involvement with Experience Corps.
That's great.
So it's not just about the kids, it's about the tutors themselves as well.
It's like a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of AARP,
Yes.
they actually offer a whole suite of resources for work and life after 50.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they have a job board, they have a skills builder, they have on-demand webinars. They're really trying to cover all the bases.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and one thing that really impressed me about AARP was their commitment to combating age discrimination.
Yeah.
They're not just providing resources, they're actually actively advocating for systemic change.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and they're promoting age diversity in the workplace, so they're really trying to, change the narrative around what it means to be an older worker.
That's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And another organization that's doing some really interesting work in this space is Cogenerate.
Oh, I've heard of them.
So they're all about fostering intergenerational collaboration,
Yeah.
and they really believe that by combining the energy of youth with the wisdom of experience, you can achieve some pretty amazing things.
That's a cool concept.
Yeah, and they actually have some really interesting programs.
Like what?
They have something called the Kogan Challenge, and they also have Encore Fellowships.
Interesting.
Yeah, so these are just some alternative pathways for older adults to kind of contribute their skills and expertise.
And to stay engaged.
Yeah, exactly. And, one quote that really stood out to me from their website,
Okay.
it was from Bill McKibben.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Young people are building the world they're going to have to live in. We want to shape the world that we're going to leave behind. Those two things mesh up beautifully."
That's a great quote.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And it speaks to this idea of collaboration between generations.
Not competition.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about us versus them. It's about working together to create a better future for everyone.
Yeah, I love that.
So our final source for this part of the deep dive is the Center for Workforce Inclusion.
Okay.
And they're focused on empowering older job seekers.
Cool.
And they actually do some research into the biases that exist around age and technology.
Oh,
Yeah, so, we talked about earlier how there's this perception that older workers aren't tech savvy,
right.
which can be a major obstacle in today's job market.
Absolutely.
But the Center for Workforce Inclusion has this really cool program.
Oh, what is it?
It's called the Digital Certification Program.
Okay.
And it helps older adults gain in-demand digital skills.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then they can actually showcase those skills to employers through a certification.
So it's like proof that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And it challenges that outdated notion that you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Love that.
It's never too late to learn and grow, especially in this digital age.
For sure.
So I think that's a great place to pause for now.
Yeah, that was a lot of information.
We've covered a lot of ground, but there's so much more to unpack.
Absolutely.
And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve deeper into the specific challenges and opportunities that older adults face in this evolving workplace.
Sounds good to me. I'm excited to hear more.
All right, we'll see you next time. Welcome back to our deep dive into the future of work for older adults. We covered a lot in the first part, but now let's look at some of the challenges.
Okay, yeah. I think one of the biggest is age discrimination. We talked about it a bit before,
Yeah.
but it's something that really needs to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a reality for so many people. And it can be really disheartening. You work hard your whole life, you gain all this experience, and then suddenly you're seen as too old.
Right, and it's not always overt discrimination.
Yes.
Sometimes it's more subtle, like assumptions about your tech skills or your adaptability or even your willingness to learn new things.
It's like experience becomes a negative thing.
Exactly. It's crazy because in reality, experience is such a valuable asset.
Totally. And that's why organizations like the Center for Workforce Inclusion are so important. They're not just providing training, they're actually working to shift those perceptions and showcase the value that older workers bring.
It's about changing the narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. And then beyond age discrimination, there's also the issue of financial instability.
Right. Especially for people who maybe had to take early retirement or who are struggling to make ends meet on a fixed income.
Yeah, it's a tough situation to be in. And it's a complex issue with a lot of factors at play, but it's important to remember that there are options.
Like what?
Well, Retired Brains talked about the potential of part-time jobs or entrepreneurship as ways to supplement income.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not always about replacing a full-time salary. It Could just be about having a little extra cushion.
Exactly. It's about creating that safety net.
Right. And AARP, with all of its resources, they can be a valuable ally in navigating these financial challenges.
For sure. They have a lot of great information and tools available. And I think another challenge for a lot of people is simply staying motivated.
Especially after spending decades in a particular career.
Yeah, it can be tough to find that same drive and enthusiasm when you're faced with a new environment and new expectations.
It's almost like an identity crisis.
Yeah, you've defined yourself by your work for so long, and then suddenly that changes. So how do you find that purpose in this new chapter?
Well, it's different for everyone, but it could be mentoring younger colleagues, giving back to your community, pursuing a passion project that you never had time for before.
Okay, yeah, it's about rediscovering what brings you joy and fulfillment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that this stage of life can be a time for reinvention, exploration, even a little bit of rebellion.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about defying those expectations and charting your own course.
Right on.
So we talked about the challenges, but what about the opportunities? What are some of the amazing things that exist for older adults in this evolving workplace?
Well, let's start with the most obvious experience. Older workers bring so much knowledge and skills to the table. It's invaluable.
It's like they've seen it all, right?
Yeah, exactly. They've navigated economic ups and downs. They've witnessed technological advancements. They've learned from their successes and their mistakes.
So they have this historical context.
Right? Which is so valuable in today's world. It allows them to see the bigger picture and make connections that others might miss.
They're not just focused on the immediate task at hand.
No, they understand the long-term implications. And beyond their technical expertise, they also tend to have really strong soft skills.
Which are so important these days.
Yeah, you're talking about communication, collaboration, problem-solving, conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Those are the skills that make teams function smoothly.
They're the glue that holds everything together.
For sure. And they often come from having to navigate some tricky situations throughout your career.
You learn a lot about diplomacy and conflict resolution when you've been in the workforce for a while.
Absolutely. And on top of all that, older workers are often seen as more reliable and having a stronger work ethic,
There's that sense of commitment and dedication.
which employers really value.
Yeah.
And it's not just about what older workers can gain from the workforce. It's about what they can contribute.
A two-way street.
Exactly. It's about mutual benefit and recognizing that everyone has something valuable to offer.
And that brings us back to the idea of intergenerational collaboration, which Cogenerate is so passionate about.
It's about breaking down those silos between generations and creating a more inclusive and dynamic work environment.
And it's not just about feel-good vibes.
No, it's about leveraging the strengths of each generation to achieve common goals.
It's about combining the energy and innovation of youth with the experience and wisdom of older workers.
A powerful combination. And another opportunity that's becoming really relevant for older adults is the rise of the gig economy.
Oh, yeah. That's a trend we hear a lot about these days.
It's all about freelance work, short-term contracts.
So it offers a lot of flexibility.
Exactly. You can control your own schedule. You can choose the projects you want to work on.
That's perfect for people who maybe don't want to commit to a full-time job or who want to have more work-life balance.
For sure. And platforms like FlexJobs and Retired Brains are making it easier than ever to find these opportunities.
So it's about finding the right fit,
Exactly.
matching your skills and interests with the right projects. And this ties into another trend that's becoming increasingly important, lifelong learning.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It's the idea that learning doesn't stop when you graduate from school or even when you retire.
It's an ongoing process.
Right. And it's essential in today's world. Employers are looking for people who are adaptable and willing to learn new things regardless of their age.
So it's not just about what you already know, it's about your capacity to grow.
Exactly. And thankfully, there are plenty of resources available to support lifelong learning. AARP has its Skills Builder program and on-demand webinars.
That's right. They offer training on everything from digital marketing to cybersecurity to project management.
So you can really stay up to date on the latest trends and technologies,
It's about staying relevant.
right? Showing employers that you're invested in your own development.
And that can be a huge confidence booster, too.
Absolutely. Now, while we're talking about the strengths of older workers, I think it's important to highlight their unique perspective. Okay, yeah, we touched on this before, but it's worth digging a little deeper.
They've lived through different eras. They've witnessed historical events. They've seen trends come and go.
It's like having a living history book on your team.
Right. They can provide insights that others might miss, and they can help to keep things in perspective. They've seen it all before, and they know that this too shall pass.
It's that sense of perspective that can be so grounding.
For sure. And beyond their historical perspective, they're also fantastic mentors.
They have so much knowledge to share.
Yeah, and they're often eager to guide younger colleagues.
It's that passing of the torch.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Making sure that the next generation is equipped to succeed. And it benefits both parties involved.
The younger workers gain valuable advice, and the older workers find a sense of purpose.
It's a beautiful cycle of learning and growth. And speaking of intergenerational dynamics, let's revisit the concept of a multi-generational workforce.
Okay, yeah, that's something that Cogenerate is really passionate about.
It's becoming more and more common in the workplace.
So what are the benefits of having people from different generations working together?
Well, you get a diversity of perspectives, experiences, and ideas.
It's like having a brainstorming session with people from all walks of life.
Right. And that diversity leads to more creative problem solving, better decision making, and a more inclusive work environment,
It's about recognizing that everyone has something to contribute.
regardless of their age.
Yeah.
And employers are starting to realize that a multi-generational workforce is a competitive advantage
It allows them to tap into a wider pool of talent.
and to create a more dynamic and innovative work environment. It's a win-win for everyone.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges and the opportunities. Are there any specific trends emerging that are particularly relevant for older adults?
Well, we've already mentioned the gig economy, but another one that's becoming really prevalent is the emphasis on remote work.
Yeah, FlexJobs really highlighted that in our research.
It seems like more and more companies are embracing remote work options,
And not just for tech jobs.
right? It's across the wide range of industries.
Which is great news for older adults who value flexibility or who might not be able to commute to an office.
Absolutely. It opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
So it seems like the future of work is becoming more flexible and adaptable.
It is, which is a good thing. It means that older workers have more options than ever before.
That's empowering. But with all this talk about change and new trends, it can be a bit overwhelming, especially if you're someone who's been in the workforce for a long time.
Yeah, I can see that. Do you have any advice for someone who's feeling a little apprehensive?
Well, first and foremost, I would say embrace lifelong learning.
Okay, yeah, that's crucial. The job market is constantly evolving, so you have to stay curious and keep expanding your knowledge base.
And there are so many ways to do that these days. Online courses, workshops, mentorship opportunities. You can really tailor it to your interests and your schedule,
It's about being proactive.
taking ownership of your own development. What else?
Networking is still incredibly important.
Yeah, you can't just rely on applying for jobs online anymore.
No, you have to get out there and meet people, build relationships, attend industry events, connect with people on LinkedIn.
It's about building that community of support.
Right. And finally, I would say be your own advocate.
Oh, that's so important. Especially as you get older, it's easy to feel like you have to take whatever comes your way.
But you don't know your worth? Highlight your skills and experience, and don't be afraid to ask for what you deserve.
Be confident, be assertive, and don't let age be a barrier.
Exactly. And if you encounter age discrimination, don't be afraid to speak up. There are laws in place to protect you, and there are organizations that can help.
It's about knowing your rights and not letting yourself be treated unfairly.
Right. Remember, you have a lot to offer, and your age is an asset, not a liability.
I love that. So even though the future of work is changing, there are still plenty of reasons to be optimistic.
Absolutely. There are challenges, but there are also incredible opportunities.
It's all about adapting, learning, and embracing the possibilities.
Exactly. And reframing aging as a time of continued growth and contribution.
Not a time to step aside.
Right. And remember, you're not alone. There are resources out there to support you every step of the way.
Well, that's reassuring to know. I think this is a good place to pause for now.
Okay. Yeah, we've covered a lot.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll wrap things up with some key takeaways and some inspiring food for thought.
Sounds good to me. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the future of work for older adults.
Yeah, and I think it's time to kind of step back and reflect on everything we've talked about so far.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a lot of information.
It has, but it's also been really inspiring, I think.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what would you say are some of the key takeaways?
Well, I think one of the most important is the importance of adaptability. You know, the job market is changing so rapidly these days, and it's crucial to be open to new ways of working, new technologies, even new career paths.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, we talked about it earlier, but lifelong learning is key. You can't just rely on the skills and knowledge you acquired earlier in your career. You have to keep evolving.
Right. And it's not just about acquiring new technical skills. It's about being open to new ideas, new perspectives, new ways of collaborating.
It's about being a lifelong learner in every sense of the word.
Exactly.
And I think another big takeaway for me was the power of purpose.
Yeah, that definitely came up a lot in our research.
It did. It seems like finding that sense of purpose is essential for feeling fulfilled in this new phase of life.
Right. It's not just about earning a paycheck anymore. It's about making a contribution, using your skills to make a difference, feeling like your work has meaning.
Absolutely. And that purpose can be found in so many different ways. It could be mentoring younger colleagues, giving back to your community, pursuing a passion project that you've always dreamed of.
It's about aligning your work with your values and finding something that truly resonates with you.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot where your skills, your passions, and the needs of the world intersect.
I like that.
Now, while we're on the topic of big ideas, we can't ignore technology.
Right.
It's the driving force behind so much of the change we're seeing in the workplace.
For sure. Remote work automation, AI data analytics. It's a lot to keep up with.
It can be really intimidating, especially for older adults who may not have grown up surrounded by all of these technologies.
Yeah, I get that. It's a steep learning curve for some people.
But it's important to remember that technology is a tool.
Right. It can be used for good or bad. It's all about how you use it.
And thankfully, there are tons of resources available to help older adults bridge that digital divide.
Yeah, organizations like the Center for Workforce Inclusion and ARP, they're doing great work in that area.
So if you're feeling a little lost or overwhelmed, there's no need to worry. There's support out there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a few practical tips.
Okay.
So first and foremost, never stop learning.
Yeah, we've said it before, but it bears repeating.
It does. The job market is constantly evolving, so you have to stay curious, stay engaged, and keep expanding your knowledge base.
And don't be afraid to try new things.
Yeah.
Step outside your comfort zone a little bit.
Exactly. It's all about embracing that beginner's mindset.
What else?
Networking is still essential.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You got to get out there and meet people, build relationships, attend industry events, stay active on LinkedIn.
And remember, networking is a two-way street. It's not just about what others can do for you, it's about what you can offer them as well.
Exactly.
And finally, be your own advocate.
That's such an important one.
It is. Know your worth, highlight your skills and experience, and don't be afraid to ask for what you deserve.
Don't undersell yourself. You have a lot to offer.
And if you encounter age discrimination, don't be afraid to speak up.
Right. There are laws to protect you, and there are organizations that can help.
So remember, you're not alone in this.
Not at all.
All right, so that's it for our deep dive into the future of work for older adults.
It's been a great conversation.
It really has. I feel like I've learned a lot.
Me too. And I hope our listeners have too.
Yeah, and I hope that they feel empowered to, embrace the possibilities that are out there.
It's an exciting time to be an older worker. It really is. So much potential.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.